For me, Thomas?
All good.
Okay.
Welcome to Worldview Tube's Washington Report on this February 10th, 2026. I'm joined now by Jim Paff of theconservativecaucus.com. Jim, how are you doing today?
Logan?
I'm doing good. Well, let's go
from the Super Bowl.
Yeah, there we go. Still recovering from all the drama, the halftime shows.
And lasciviousness, don't forget that.
Yeah, well, we got our first story today. It actually just popped up for me right before we started, and it's pretty shocking. The amount owed in unpaid taxes across the 149,000 IRS agents comes to one. Okay, I see what the difference is here. Okay, so there's not 149,000 IRS agents, but across all federal employees, it's 1.5 billion. Across IRS agents, it's 50 million. Let's watch this clip from Fox Business.
While most Americans had to write a big fat check to the government today to pay their taxes, over 100,000 federal workers are not paying their taxes. In 2021, the IRS found that almost 150,000 federal workers owe about $1.5 billion in unpaid taxes. Over 5,000 of them work at the IRS and owe $50 million in overdue taxes. Even though the IRS can fire its workers that are not paying their taxes, only 20 people have been terminated. That double standard is something Senator Joni Ernst, Senate DOJ caucus chair, wants to stop. She's introducing several bills aimed at cleaning up the IRS. One bill would require IRS employees to be audited every year and fired if they don't pay their taxes. But while the IRS is not catching the tax cheats on their own payroll, they are busy arming their workforce. Ernst is also calling out 10 million taxpayer dollars the IRS has spent on guns and ammo, stockpiling 4,500 guns, 5 million rounds of ammo, even 15 machine guns.
So that's shocking. The people who are tasked with coming after you if you don't pay your taxes, according to that report, owe $50 million in unpaid taxes, and only 20 of them have been terminated.
There's an interesting little factoid. You know how Democrats are running around saying, you're not giving illegal aliens the rule of law. They're not subject to the rule of law. They don't get regular rights. You know, they're screaming and yelling about that. The average American doesn't know that you've got no rule of law rights when it comes to the IRS. You get that they determine, they make the final determination. There's an adjudication process, but they have all the rights. You don't get Fourth Amendment rights. You don't get Fifth Amendment rights. I mean, you have no rights with the IRS. They make the determination. If you haven't paid, they determine what the punishment and the penalty is. There are ways to get to court, but to be candid, the IRS gets first precedence over what's going to happen to you. You do not have constitutional rights if you disagree with the IRS. If the IRS thinks you're wrong, you're done. And here we are with the hypocrisy of their radical approach that it's their way or the highway. But you've got so many of these people that are not even paying their own taxes. It's really absurd. Listen, people make mistakes on taxes. There are many studies that have been done I'm talking about by CPAs, by qualified accountants who show that, in fact, they typically do this. They'll give like 5 to 10 CPAs the exact same information to create a return for the exact same kind of person. They're independently given the amount, all the receipts and everything. They do the return, and it comes back 5 or 10 different ways. This is such an absurd system. We have got to change our tax structure in this country. Income taxes need to go away. Sorry, federal government, you just take too much of our money. The federal government And well, all taxes combined take 40 to 50% of almost every American's income. We are taxed to death. It is the most absurd thing. And then when you watch these people not even willing to pay their own taxes, it's crazy.
Yeah, and they spend our tax dollars like crazy. I mean, just this clip from this morning of Howard Lutnick. Under the Biden administration, Louisiana was tasked with spending $1.3 billion, which they're doing now for only $500 million. Watch this clip.
Under the Biden administration, Louisiana was tasked to spend more than $1.3 billion to do exactly what it's doing now for under $500 million. That means in Louisiana alone, the American taxpayers saved more than $800 million, delivering better economic results, all while advancing the same performance standards that you have set. We are delivering for the state of Louisiana and all American taxpayers. Under the benefit of the bargain reforms, Louisiana reopened its bidding competition, embraced technology neutrality, and drove costs down dramatically. Under the Biden administration fiber mandate, the cost to serve a single house in Louisiana was $120,000 of fiber to connect one single house. Today, the highest cost location in the state of Louisiana is closer to $7,000, with an average cost of $4,000. And they're doing this all while achieving universal coverage. This is the difference between a program designed around waste and abuse and a program designed around value.
Yeah, Jim, the only logical explanation for all this overspending is that there is a mischievous motive behind it, that there's fraud or the money's getting passed around somewhere, right?
Well, in effect, what Howard Lutnick is describing there is fraud.
Yeah.
And let me explain why. So what he's I think he's talking about what's called the RUS program, the Rural Universal Service Program, which is a USDA program that puts money into initially it was created to provide a way for people in rural areas to get telephone service. This program began, I believe, in the 1950s, maybe as far back as the 40s. The design was to get telephones into people's hands. There are older people, baby boomers and early Gen Xers, that remember in their homes or in their areas that people had what are called party lines. And a party line was different people would share telephone service, 2, 3, 4, 5 houses, and whoever was using it, everyone else could hear it, and no one else. So, I mean, that's how extensive they worked at a time to try to get telephone service to people. Fast forward to the day, and this same RUS program is being used to fund internet service into rural areas. Mm-hmm. Here's the problem. This is what's really interesting. Lutnick is describing a high level of efficiency in a highly inefficient program. So, and actually, at $7,000 for an end user, that actually may be a market cost that an internet provider could actually endure because they're looking for money to come. But if every end user costs $7,000 to get service to them, and you're charging them, say, $100 a month, how long until that gets paid off?
Yeah, and why are we paying in the first place? Why are we paying in the first place for these rural areas to have internet? Why is not private industries and private companies doing this?
Well, and we did this in a lot of areas. Like, for example, the Tennessee Valley Authority was created, I think, in the 19-teens or 20s for the purpose of damming up water on the major rivers in the entire Tennessee Valley so that you could have water available and less expensive to people in the area because they would have to grab it up off streams themselves even. I mean, we're still very, very primitive in the early 19th century in those rural areas. This whole idea was for government to expend money to give people services that couldn't easily be provided privately. This has always been a farce. There is a high incentive for internet providers to provide service. And by the way, with Starlink satellites, literally all over the world right now. There's no need to run these lines.
Yeah.
And it's an affordable service, or at least equally affordable to anyone anywhere else in the world that has line provided service.
And
so
damming up
these
water,
are inefficient programs, and Howard Lutnick is pointing out a high level of efficiency in one of these inefficient programs.
Yeah, and damming up water is more essential than internet. If someone wants internet, if there's a high demand for internet in a rural area, then a private company would provide it if there was a high demand. But a lot of times,
what's really interesting about the Tennessee Valley Authority, and I won't get into this too long, but the reality is, at the time, and there have been economic studies that have shown this, it could have been done in private means, and it was done in government means. There's also this desire of government entities to control services, and at that time, there was really a pro-socialist way of thinking in the United States. Mussolini was praised before he became a scoundrel because of his socialist governance in Italy, and even presidents like Woodrow Wilson were praising it. So there's this tension between government entities wanting to provide these services or pretending that it's needed so that they can build out these programs that end up becoming slush funds. And so what Howard Lutnick is describing is exactly what the problem was in the 20s with the Tennessee Valley Authority and in the early rural universal service programs, is that the costs are so outrageous that you have ways for people to, it's almost like giving under the table money to contractors, but you don't have to do it under the table because, well, it just costs this much and we just give you the money and you can do it out in the open. These are just as fraudulent programs as anything going on in Somalia. And I'm not beating up Howard Lutnick. It's a program that Congress passed that we need to get them to get rid of because there are other means to do it in this age of technology. But nonetheless, that program he was describing was far worse than just in Louisiana. Hundreds of billions of dollars were going to contractors to provide these services that actually were never provided for at all in the Biden administration. So there's so much to this, and it's just another area of government fraud and corruption.
Yeah. Well, speaking of useless spending, watch this report from Nick Shirley out of California with the drug paraphernalia being passed out on the side of the street. Watch this.
This guy is clearly, he's passed out right now. How do we know that he is still alive and that he doesn't need Narcan right now?
He's breathing. You see his chest rising and it's going up and down and his color's good. Now, if he's blue, he's not responsive, his color's gone, he'd be like a blue, gray, purple color, then you know he's overdosing.
Okay.
So the most important thing is to hit him with Narcan. Doesn't matter how much Narcan you give him. You know, if you got 3 in here, give him all 3 and rescue breaths.
Okay, so what's in here? What's inside this bag?
Okay, so
this Narcan you inject into their nose and it brings them back to life.
yes, sir, yeah.
While I was talking to the guy about Narcan, my friend Tommy was also talking to another guy in the cart about some other things, and I think you guys are all going to find this very strange what he'd received from the people on the cart.
They're talking to the people over there in the van and they're giving out free stuff. They're giving out the Narcan to save people, and then they're also giving out needles. And what's the idea of giving out needles and the rubber bands?
This is so they could do the drugs like without worrying about disease, so everyone gets a clean needle.
That's like, how many needles inside there? There's
27, 10 of them.
There's 10 needles inside of this bag right
You
here.
get everything, the whole kit. You get the rubber band, you get the alcohol, you get the cotton swabs, but then this is what you actually put it in here and heat this up, and then they give you filtered water.
So they are literally giving the people here on the street what they need to keep doing drugs.
And it's funny because if you notice, like in your hand, you have the Narcan one, right? So they're giving you the stuff to do the drugs, right? This, glass pipes, and then they're giving you the stuff to save your life, so you don't die, and then they give it to you every day. And look, I'm not even homeless. I just went up to the guy and said, hey, can I get a Narcan bag and can I get a drug bag? And the guy said, yeah, no questions asked, no, hey, don't do this, or can we get you some help? No, they're just offering you the drug bags to do the drugs. They're not offering you any kind of help or assistance or any kind of detoxing. They're just giving you the materials.
They're giving you the drugs
to do the drugs.
They're giving you the stuff you need to do the drug, and they're giving you the stuff that you need to revive your life after you do the drugs.
Think about how much money this costs for these packs to be given out daily to so many people, when that money could be going to other programs to help them. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, here, kill yourself, save yourself, kill yourself, save yourself. It's a cycle, and it's not fair to them. You know what I mean?
All right. So instead of using the money to actually help the people. They're harming them. They're helping them go further into addiction by supplying.
You know what's really funny about that? They're really harming people. The efforts to do this are called harm reduction centers. Just FYI, This has been around for a long time, and mostly in liberal inner cities. So when I was working in the Colorado legislature in 2018 and 19, just right near there was a place called the Harm Reduction Action Center. It still exists today. They're giving out needles. The legislature was trying to create a program to actually give them drugs so that they wouldn't, when they were trying to get off a safe place to use drugs, I guess I should say, not to fund giving them drugs, but a safe place to be able to actually use drugs. What these sorts of efforts are intended to do, or at least a stated effort, is with the knowledge that people will share needles and that can transmit disease and it can cause other problems. To have a used needle, they want to give them clean needles so that they don't hurt themselves. But the problem is they're hurting themselves. We have coddled this problem in a manner that is, well, we both coddled it and created the problem, let me put it this way, of drug use on the streets, because we've created a system where people can almost without consequence use drugs, other than the direct consequence of the drug use, and helped extend addiction. What we've taken away from this are ways, first of all, for people to be put, whether they agree to it or not, into recovery programs that can help them get off drugs and find a job. I mean, if you're going to do this sort of thing, don't hand out needles. Yeah. Get people into these systems. But the other problem is this. We've gotten rid of what we used to call insane asylums, but places where people with mental problems could go. And a lot of these people either had going into the problem or have developed mental incapacities that need very specific and helpful treatment. We don't do those things. And we used to do that all voluntarily without government money. So there's a lot of waste of money with these needle programs. One of the things they didn't talk about, or at least not in this video, and I'm sure he documented elsewhere, is the fact that we saw this in Denver, Colorado, right around the state legislature. There were needles all over the streets. You had to really be careful where you were walking because you might step on a needle and it might get into your skin and then cause you to have harm come to yourself. It's really outrageous the way this has been handled. There's no plan or program to it, and frankly, they're consigning these people to much worse situations than they might have otherwise put themselves into by allowing them to continue down this path with no consequence that would require them to desire to get out of it.
Yep. Yeah. Well, we got to go to break. We'll be back in just a moment with a little bit more on this. We'll be right back.
We have a big announcement, folks. It's called Bella Melt. In the first week, you lost 3 pounds on this, right?
That is correct.
Your GLP-1 is a natural hormone that's in every single one of our bodies. And your GLP-1 lets you know if you're full. It's a satiety hormone. So when your GLP is working properly, it does help suppress your appetite as well as reduce those cravings. So what it's going to do best is it's going to reduce your sugar cravings or any other cravings you have in your body. It's going to suppress that appetite. But where Melissa got the most benefit, I think, over the last week was the L-carnitine. The L-carnitine tells your mitochondria, this is where you we've talked about it before, this is where you produce energy in your cells. It actually tells those mitochondria to burn fat for fuel.
MelissaHousebg.com just now introducing for the first time Bella Melt with GLP-1 Fast Action.
All right, welcome back from the break. Jim, I looked up during the break how much of this drug passing out, this drug paraphernalia harm reduction is being funded by federal funds. And some of it is, most of it's being, like they're saying, is state funds. But just for example, in 2023, the CDC gave Santa Clara County $11 million for overdose prevention, including harm reduction collaborations. what are the harm reduction collaborations? Most likely it's like we saw.
It's all related to drug use.
Exactly.
All
And I think, what was it we were doing during the Biden administration? We're passing out fentanyl test strips, right? To test the fentanyl, test for fentanyl and drugs. So.
While we're allowing it to just come in wantonly through our border.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's insane. The Democrats are almost always, I mean, almost without exception, everything Democrats propose cause more harm than it's prevented, than is ever prevented. You know, by the way, just not related to the drug thing, but I just saw Chamath Palihapitiya, who's in the All In podcast with David Sachs and those guys. He just noted the fact that Mark Zuckerberg left and went to Florida recently, and now the total billionaire net worth went from $2 trillion to well below $1 trillion because of the massive amount of the wealth tax that they're going to pass. But the point I'm making is that they keep asking for our tax dollars to do these programs that fail. They rarely help anyone. And anyone that does get helped in them, it was by happenstance. You know, like it wasn't something they planned or that they did well or some good decision that they made because of the program. So the interventions for these problems have to take place in various levels. First of all, some people are just going to be so stupid that they'll kill themselves. And you can do anything you want and everything you want to try to stop it, and it's not going to stop. You can't stop them. Mm-hmm. The second thing is, if they hit rock bottom hard enough, that often can become an incentive to stop. And we hear success story after success story of people who struggle with drugs or struggle with poverty. They hit the bottom. They decided to try to do better, and they succeeded. And it's not just the stories you hear on television or on movies or whatever. It happens every day because people hit bottom and decide, I got to change. And then the last thing is this. These programs, when they do exist, should never be funded by or controlled by government, because government doesn't know how to do these things at all. You need religious institutions and other philanthropic organizations who will take more accountability in dealing with these situations and make better determinations about who they're going to help and who they won't help. That is by far the most effective way to do it. And one great example of this is David Wilkerson's Teen Challenge program. It has a massively successful rate at bringing people out of drug abuse and into productive lives. It's one of the most successful programs that there is. It is not nice to people. It is very kind because it helps them, but it's kind of a scared straight sort of program for a lot of people. But they come out of it because they also have a religious and hopefully conversion experience to have some foundation from which to say, I have a moral responsibility to myself and to others. Government does none of these things, and that's why they always fail, and we keep dumping more and more of our tax dollars into these failed programs.
And another thing that doesn't work, which happens everywhere, I mean, I have stories right here in Tennessee and Memphis, is throwing them in jail, throwing people who are caught with drugs in jail. Especially here in Memphis, I've heard stories, it's easier to get drugs in the downtown Memphis at 201 than it is to get on the streets. It's easier to get drugs in jail than it is on the streets. So you throw these drug addicts in jail and they just continue to do drugs, and then you let them out.
Well, listen, Democrat criminal reform and criminal justice reform issues have gone so out of whack that criminality is worse. What real criminal justice reform is people should only get thrown into prison when they commit violent acts, okay? Or they have a high level of fiduciary, stealing and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Rare are the instances should ever have to be throwing people in jail. If we're going to make it a crime for people to use drugs, then you should have very real accountability things that would have the threat of jail, if not followed through upon, if they're serious enough. But just mere possession of a drug, why do we throw people like that in jail? If they're going to be stupid, they're going to be stupid. You cannot stop stupid with government action. What you do need to do is have government get out of the way and let the culture understand and learn from itself and build good foundations that can help prevent some of these harms. by issues of shame and culture, by issues of people using their charitable activities and efforts to help other people. This is what makes society better. Throwing people in prison and giving them needles to continue something that is going to cause them more harm than good is not the way that you do it. And again, government has no heart, so it can't do these things to begin with.
Well, let's move on. President Trump put out on True Social today, I guess Canada built a bridge going from Michigan to Canada. And he said President Barack Obama stupidly gave them a waiver so they could get around the Buy American Act and not use any American products, including our steel. Now the Canadian government expects me as President of the United States to permit them to just take advantage of America. What does the United States of America get? Absolutely nothing. Ontario won't even put U.S. spirits, beverages, or other alcoholic products on their shelves. They're absolutely prohibited from doing so. And now, on top of everything else, Prime Minister Carney wants to make a deal with China, which will eat Canada alive. And he says, I will not allow this bridge to open until the United States is fully compensated for everything we have given them. And also, importantly, Canada treats the United States with the fairness and respect that we deserve. We will start negotiations immediately. So we'll see what Canada has to say about this. But why would President Obama allow them to go around using American steel? And I mean, why would we allow them to build this bridge?
Listen, the ultimate thing that I hope we could have with every country is zero tariffs going both ways. Mm-hmm. With countries that are truly friendly and are not going to cause us harm. So, for example, if Canada would stop being idiots and set these things straight, they should want, and we would want, to have free trade on every product going back and forth. And if it's good to produce in Canada, sell it down here or vice versa. Or if it works best on both sides, may the best man win. But what has been happening over and over again is Canada has taken advantage of their relationship with us, particularly in areas like dairy production, where they have been highly protectionist for their dairy farmers, which has actually harmed their agricultural community more than helped it. Because when you have highly protectionist efforts, then that kind of harm happens. But they exemplify what existed in trade prior to Donald Trump. In the post-World War II era, when Europe was devastated because of war, and we decided we wanted to give them a leg up to rebuild and do better, we threw money at them, and we opened up our trade widely to them so that they could rebuild industries and have markets to put them in, because their markets were only having to reestablish themselves. Well, that in other words, they got a better trade deal with us than we got with them. And we did that for a while. We can argue whether that was good, bad, or indifferent. The reality is that problem doesn't exist anymore. And now you still have, and Canada is a good example of it, these deals where Canada got free trade with us, and we didn't get any free trade or not enough free trade with them. We got trade with them, but they got a far better deal than we ever did, even under NAFTA and these other organizations that Donald Trump has always railed on and got us out of. So it's time to reset this. Canada needs to wake up. They need to stop mistreating us when it comes to trade. They want all the favors to come to them, and they want to give nothing back. That is not a mutually beneficial relationship. And Canada won't be harmed by opening their markets up to us and vice versa. Everybody would win, but they don't want to do that because they still live under this World Economic Forum radical elitist agenda that makes government officials powerful and feel like they have something to do, and it leaves the citizens behind. This is why Manitoba, there's a very strong movement right now for Manitoba. They want to come into the United States. They want to leave Canada. And as some people have suggested, we'll give you Minnesota for Manitoba. And frankly, I'd take that deal too.
All right. Well, in other news, I guess some of the ICE director and some other officials with ICE were in front of Congress today. And let's hear, I don't even know how to pronounce this congressman's name, which I don't know why we have congressmen with names I can't pronounce, but here we go. Here's what he had to say to the ICE director this morning.
Go ahead. I'm not going to speak on behalf of President Trump, but I'll tell you, I signed up for this job to protect America, and I'm very proud of the service that I provide, and I don't need a pardon from anybody.
Well, you better hope so. You better hope you get being pardoned, because you will be held accountable for the absolute disregard of the law your agencies have shown over the past year. Your agencies have lost the trust of the American people, with millions taking to the streets to protect the illegal actions of your agencies. And that's why I introduced a bill in the United States Congress to abolish ICE. ICE must be abolished. I also co-sponsored a bill to impeach Secretary Kristi Noem. And I believe Kristi Noem must be impeached. And this Congress must do everything in its power to carry out oversight actions against these rogues departments, including if
Gentleman's time is expired.
All right. How do you pronounce this? Is it Shri?
Shri. Yeah, I think so.
Oh, man, the music's running. I had a clip from a
Listen,
couple.
let's just start out with the fact this guy's reading from a script. Someone told him what to say. One.
Yeah.
Two, don't sit around. We're suddenly going to throw people in jail because they've, quote, by someone's perception, lost the trust of the American people. I mean, that's genocidal. That's ultimately genocidal. It's a murderous intent. These Democrats are nuts.
And if you want something to go look up Shri Sean Hannity and watch the segment Sean Hannity did with Shri a few weeks ago. I don't think we ever played it, but I watched it. It was awesome.
Oh, I saw it.
We're
Yeah,
all out of
hilarious.
time. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Until then, take care.